Alright, good morning everybody. This is Bob, KK4DIV. Today I'd want to make a little video about the Ailunce HD1 DMR radio that the nice folks of Retevis were kind enough to send me for testing and evaluation. In this video, I'd like to talk quickly about where to go on the Retevis website to find the programming software for this radio, as well as a high-level overview on how to program the radio and the settings I use to connect this radio to my open spot, my Shark RF open spot, so that I can talk on the DMR Brandmeister network. So we're going to start with the Retevis.com website with the Ailunce HD1 page pulled up. As you can see, this is the HD1 dual band DMR amateur digital radio. It is retailing for about $189, and there's some different options here for the type, different charger types. We're not going to go into all the different variations of this radio. I want to get right into where to find the programming software. So up at the top you'll see several options here: amateur, other radio, accessories. One is called support. If you hover over support, go down to resources, click that. It'll bring up a new tab in your browser with the resources page. If you scroll down a little ways, you'll find something that I find very interesting, and it may be very useful to you, is the USB drivers for the HD1. Now, one thing of interest to note is when I plugged up my USB to the computer for the programming cable to the computer, I didn't need to install any drivers. For one reason or another, either the drivers were already installed, or it may have just been magic and a little bit of luck. But I didn't need to install any drivers. But if you do need to install the drivers are located right here on this web page. What you'll be looking for down here below this are all the radios. Up at the top is the HD1 radio. If you click that link right there, it will download the software to your computer. This is a zip file. Once you unzip that file, it will have a folder, and the installation software is located inside that folder. So you'll just need to go through the installation process, which I'm not going to show here, but if you've installed any software on Windows, you're familiar with the process. Alright, so we need to get the programming cable hooked into the computer and the radio. So we've got to get the dust cover off of the programming port. You're going to need a flathead screwdriver. We'll go ahead and take that off. Before we plug it up to the radio, you're going to need to know the COM port for this device. So what I like to do, if I don't know which COM port it's going to be, I like to open up Device Manager. Right there. And go down to Ports, COM port, double click it. So you can see I have COM ports 3, 4, and 6. That's operating some various ham gear that I have running, some TNCs for the BBC, or I'm sorry, for the BBS, and my APERS, iGate. So when we plug this into the computer, if I can get this in there you go. Alright, you see COM port 7 appeared. So we know that this is going to be COM port 7. Let's go ahead and open up the software. I have the software here on the desktop kind of pulled out. We'll double click that and open up that software, and while that's opening up, we'll go ahead and install or plug up the radio. And the nice thing about this cable is you can use this thumb screw to screw that down. So that's very nice. Alright, so we have the software up. We're going to go ahead and turn the radio on. And you have some buttons up here. One is to open a folder where you might have your settings. You can see I have a few settings saved. I saved the default settings when I first opened up the radio, and then I have a couple of my settings that I made one day, then updated it the next day. This is to save some settings. This is to read data from the radio, and this is to write data to the radio. So I'm going to go ahead and read the data from the radio, so I can pull all the settings that I've previously saved from the radio to this program here, and I can show you my settings. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go through each and every setting and each and every menu for this radio. What I am going to show you is the settings I use to talk on the Brandmeister network through my Shark OpenSpot. And again, this is just to kind of get you started with the radio, and you can kind of use this as a template and make changes as you need them. So the first thing I've done is I've clicked this little plus button here next to basic settings. It brings down a few sub-menu settings here. The first one is basic information. I click serial number, version date, firmware version, all that's in basic information. That data was pulled from the radio, and nothing to change there. We'll close that. The next one here is settings. So up at the top you have password settings. You've got write passwords and read passwords. The write password and all that was preset. I didn't change any of that, but I do not have them checked. I do not want a read and write password on my radio, so I've kept those unchecked. They are unchecked default. The way I got my radio, they were unchecked, so I just left them unchecked. You can see under basic attributes several different other options here. Key press, voice language, voice assist, squelch level, a whole bunch of settings here. These are mostly as they came from the factory. I didn't change any of these. The only two I did do something with are these default zones for band A and band B. We'll cover those in a minute. We're not going to get into that right now because that has to do with zones, and there is a zone setting we'll cover in a moment. So you can take a look at this, pause the video here, check these out. If you need to copy these, that's fine, but these are pretty much default as they came from the factory. The next one is key setting. So there are two keys, side keys, right below the push to talk on the left hand side of the radio. You've got side key 1 and side key 2, and those can do two different things. You can have a long press or a short press. So as you see with side key 1, you can set, there's a whole bunch of different options here for side key 1 and side key 2. But I do not have a long press set for side key 1. The short press is toggles between high, mid, and low power. I thought that would be something handy to have. The next one, side key 2, long press, I have where we'll bring up the FM broadcast radio, and a short press will scan the active band that I have selected. I don't do anything with one key call. Haven't done anything with that. But ID setting this is where you're going to put in your DMR ID. So there's my DMR ID, and you can put in a radio name. I just put in my call sign. That's all you need to do there. There are different ID settings if you have to get onto different networks and things like that. But for most of us amateur radio operators, you're just going to put in one DMR ID and then give your radio a name. So that's all you need to do there. We're going to go ahead and close that. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to skip channels and zones and all that. We're going to go down to contacts, and we're going to hit the plus on that, and we're going to look at priority contacts. So this is an important window where you'll put in all of your talk groups. There's some buttons down here to add and delete. You'll want to add your talk groups. So if you hit add, you can see another one will show up down here at the bottom. If I want to delete it, I'll just click on 10 and hit delete, so you can delete them. But you'll want to add your talk groups. So I have talk group, my first slot here on the contacts is excuse me, talk group 3174. that's set up as a group call. It's the Southeast Talk Group, and you can see the call ID is 3174. The next one, Southwest 3176, I have that set up as a group call, and call ID is 3176. So over here on the far right column where it says call ID, these are where you're wanting to actually put just your talk group numbers. Those should just be numerical. So I have a few talk groups here. I have a few at the end I'm going to mention here. Number 7, private call, disconnect. That's talk group 4000. That will disconnect you from your current talk group that you may be on. Private call, parrot. I kind of stole that from somebody else, but that's an echo. I've used it with D-Star, but you put in talk group 9990, and that's if you want to test your audio quality. Go to talk group 9990, key up the radio. You can say a few words, unkey, and in a couple seconds your transmission will come back to you. So you can hear what you sound like. See if your audio is going through okay. And the last one here, group call, QuadNet 3102. The talk group is 3102. That is the QuadNet. That's a very interesting talk group to be on. That kind of cross modes, DMR, D-Star, Fusion, and there's another one in there, and I can't remember what it is, but it's just cross mode, so you can hear people talking on D-Star, System Fusion, that sort of thing. So that's a cool talk group to be monitoring. But you can see the talk groups I have here, and again, this is what I have, and maybe you can get some ideas from this and go from there. Alright, moving on. We're going to close out priority contacts. We're going to go back up to channel. Now, channel information here. You have VFO A, VFO B. Don't do anything with those. Those are your VFOs. Then I have some channels here, and you have a whole bunch of channels. 3,000 channels total. More than I'll ever use. My goodness. So, if you go to channel 1, I use a Shark RF open spot to connect to the Brandmeister DMR network. So I have my Shark set up on simplex. It's 446.500 for the receive and transmit, so I've got that frequency plugged in here. This is a digital channel. Don't need any kind of encoding. Transmit power I have set to low because I'm just going to be using this around the house, maybe out in the yard, maybe I'll throw the hotspot in the car, but I don't need a whole lot of power. So kind of going along with what, one of the rules of ham radio, use the least amount as possible to make the contact. So we have low power. I do not have these set up to scan, so we're put no on all these for scan add. But the channel alias, this is where you can name your channel, and I've named it TG3174 for talk group 3174. Now that's just a name. Now if you hit more, it's going to bring up another little window here and has a whole bunch of information. So a lot of this came from the previous screen. Your transmit and receive frequencies are here, your channel alias that you named it, transmit power low, timeout timer in seconds, 75 seconds, Vox level, so all that can be changed if you want to. Digital data, this is important. Work mode is simplex because I'm not going through a repeater. I'm doing simplex to my hotspot. We're going to use slot 1, time slot 1. ID setting, that comes from this ID setting I talked about earlier where we put in your DMR ID. So I'm using the radio name KK4DIV with my DMR ID number. Color code is 1. RX group list custom, I think that was default. Encryption, don't use any encryption. Promiscuous, I checked. We'll talk about promiscuous in a minute. All of this stayed the same. Transmit authority, kill code, wake up code. I don't believe I changed any of that, but that is what I'm using there. Contacts priority. So this comes from our priority contacts we just made, and we're going to select Southeast 3174 from that contacts that I created. So we can talk on talk group 3174 on this channel. So this channel, channel 1, is talk group 3174. and I have that promiscuous checked. We'll talk about that in a minute. So channel 2, same thing. All this is the same, except the channel alias is 3176, TG3176. I have, when you click more on that, we have contacts priority. All this is the same, except we've selected Southwest 3176 for our talk group. So let's talk about this promiscuous thing here. So that's a handy little thing to have checked, and if you notice, I have it checked on all of my channels. We go to channel 3, hit more. I have it checked here as well. So what that does is you're monitoring several different talk groups on your hotspot, and you have promiscuous checked. You can be on, say, channel 1 talking on 3174, and you can leave it on 3174, but if somebody comes out on, say, 3112 and puts out a call and it's somebody you want to talk to, you'll hear that. So then you can change channels to 3112 and initiate a QSO with that person. So it kind of monitors all your channels. Whichever ones you have checked for promiscuous, it will monitor all of those. So that's kind of nice to have. So you see I have 1 through 8 channels here for all my different talk groups. One channel for each talk group. Next, I have the PC Panama City repeaters here. I have 145, 210, the W4RYZ, the 3.3 machine, AC4QB, and our SARnet node or repeater here in town, 444175. SARnet's cool. That is a linked repeater system through the state of Florida through microwave. It's on the Florida Department of Transportation's microwave backbone, so it's all linked throughout the state. Very cool on that. But that's analog, so that's not what this is about. But I just thought I'd mention that. Very cool. All right, now that we have that all set up, again, this is just an idea for you. This is what I have set up, and you can kind of use this as a guide to set your radio up. Now that we've done channels, we're going to look at zone information. Zone information is what I was talking about in the settings. You can have a bunch of different zones and a bunch of different channels per zone. So what I only have 2 zones. I have zone 1 and zone 2. Zone 1 is channels 1 through 8. Those are my DMR channels, talk group channels. And then I have zone 2 for Panama City repeaters. And when I click that, you can see selected channels are those Panama City repeaters. So you can take a channel, you can move it over, you can take a channel, you can move it back. So that's how this works. Just select your zone, select your available channels, and you can move them over to the selected channels. And those selected channels will be the channels for that specific zone. So the reason I do that is because I have open spot zone for my A band and Panama City repeaters for the B band on my radio. So I can switch back and forth between the two bands. I can monitor both bands at the same time. So I can just kind of, well, that's just how I have it set up. So you can set it up differently, but that's what works for me. And this is just to give you some ideas as to what you can do. Address book contacts, we'll cover that later, and maybe in another video. But when you talk to somebody on DMR, you get their DMR ID that will show up on your radio. If you don't have address book contacts stored in your radio, all you're going to see is their DMR ID. So this isn't really something you have to do, but it's something that's nice to have. There's a website you can go to, and I don't know the website off the top of my head, but you can download the address book contacts for your state, your country, the world, however you want to do it. You can import those contacts into this program and then write the contacts to the radio. But we'll cover address book contacts later. RX group lists I don't use, DMR service I don't use, radio I don't use. Radio is for setting up some channels for your broadcast FM radios. Not too interested in having that. I'll just use the VFO knob on the top of the radio to change channels if I would like to listen to the radio. But that is the Ailunce HD1 programming software. It's fairly easy to use. If you have, hope this gives you some ideas, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me.
So, like I said, this is how I've set up my radio to use with my hotspot. But hopefully it will help you as well. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Remember, if you're a ham radio operator, I hope to catch you on down the log. And if you're a YouTube watcher, hope to see you in a future video. So 73 everybody, from Bob, KK4DIV. Until next time.